Your hands are freezing right now. Your body feels fine, warm, even, but your fingers feel like they belong to someone standing outside in the snow. And you've probably wondered, why me? Why does this happen to some people constantly, while the person next to you never deals with it at all? Here's the thing nobody tells you. This isn't random, and it isn't just poor circulation like people casually say. There's a mechanism running underneath your skin right now, a switch flipping on and off in your blood vessels, deciding in real time how much warmth reaches your fingers and toes. And that switch didn't appear out of nowhere. It's old. Some researchers trace pieces of it back to populations who survived brutal, freezing environments for generations, bodies that learned to ration heat to stay alive. Today, that same wiring is still active in you, just running in a world that doesn't need it the same way anymore. So let's break down exactly how it works, starting with the difference between being cold everywhere and being cold in just your hands. So let's get specific about what's actually happening here, because a lot of people assume cold hands just means bad circulation without understanding what that really means. The thing that warms your hand is blood. Simple as that. Your body core sits around 98.6 degrees, and as that warm blood travels out toward your hands, it's going to cool off a little on the way. That's completely normal. If your core is 98.6, your hands should land somewhere around 90 to 93 degrees. That's the expected drop-off. But here's where it gets interesting. A lot of people who complain about cold hands aren't sitting at 90 degrees. Their hands are down at 78, sometimes 80, even in a room that's a comfortable 72 degrees. Some people test out even lower than that, with hands barely a few degrees warmer than the room itself. And what that number is really telling you is that almost no blood is making it out to your hands. Same story with the feet. So the question becomes obvious. What decides how much blood gets let through to your hands and feet in the first place? Because clearly, something is standing guard at the gate, deciding how much warmth gets rationed out to the periphery and how much stays locked in the core. And that gatekeeper is exactly what we need to look at next. That gatekeeper has a name, vasoconstriction. Your blood vessels, especially the larger ones, actually have muscle built into their walls, which means they can change shape on command. When those muscles tighten up, that's vasoconstriction, and it narrows the vessel, restricting how much blood gets through. When they relax, that's vasodilation, and it opens the door wide, letting blood flow freely out into the smaller capillaries, the tiniest blood vessels you have, the ones running through your fingers and toes. So when your hands go cold, what's really happening is your body is choosing to tighten that valve, deliberately limiting how much blood reaches your extremities. It's not a malfunction. It's not your body failing to work properly. It's your body actively making a decision, which naturally raises the real question, why would your body choose to cut off blood flow to your own hands? What's triggering that valve to close in the first place? Because this isn't some random glitch in your wiring, and it isn't happening by accident. Somewhere, a signal is being sent, telling those muscles around your blood vessels to clamp down and hold the line. And once you understand what's sending that signal, the whole picture starts to make a lot more sense, because it turns out this response was never designed for a chilly office or a walk to your car. It was designed for something much more urgent. The trigger behind that valve closing down is stress, more specifically, something called a stress response. When your body detects a threat, it doesn't just feel worried, it physically changes how it operates to prepare for danger. Picture this, a bear or a truck barreling toward you right now. Your body needs to react instantly. Your heart rate spikes, your blood pressure climbs, and your blood vessels constrict so blood can move faster and get redirected exactly where it's needed most, usually your big muscles, the ones about to save your life by getting you out of the way. In a genuine emergency, this system works beautifully. It's efficient, it's fast, and it's exactly what you'd want happening in that split second. But here's the problem, most of us aren't running from bears. We're sitting at a desk, stuck in traffic, scrolling through bad news, feeling tense and wound up without any actual emergency happening at all. And yet the vasoconstriction still kicks in anyway. The difference is, your heart isn't pumping harder to compensate because there's no real threat demanding that extra effort. So now you've got tightened vessels without the increased push behind them, which means blood actually slows down getting to your hands and feet instead of speeding up. Low-grade, chronic stress creates exactly this pattern. Quiet, constant vasoconstriction with nothing dramatic ever happening to justify it. Just persistent cold hands as the result. Now here's where this gets genuinely fascinating. Some scientists studying human population genetics have found that certain groups with long histories in extremely cold climates, parts of Siberia, the Arctic, and other frigid regions carry gene variants tied to how their bodies manage circulation and heat distribution. The theory goes that over countless generations, natural selection favored bodies that could ration blood flow more aggressively, protecting the core at the expense of the extremities, because losing a few fingers to frostbite beat losing your life to hypothermia. It's a brutal trade-off, but it kept people alive long enough to pass those traits down. Now, this isn't some fully settled, one gene explains everything story. Human circulation is complicated, and plenty of your cold hands story is really about stress and lifestyle, not ancestry. But the overlap is worth paying attention to, because if this kind of trait really did get passed down through certain bloodlines, it's the kind of thing that could still be sitting quietly in someone's DNA today, especially if your family history traces back to those colder corners of the world. Before I get to the last part of this, everything I just showed you about how this trait may run in your bloodline is traceable inside your own DNA results. Over at the Origin DNA, I built a 3-volume PDF guide bundle that teaches you how to unlock your raw data, find relatives, and uncover those deeper origin stories. Link is below. Now here's what nobody talks about. So if stress is what's flipping that valve closed, the next question is obvious: what controls the stress response in the first place? And the answer sits right at the top, in your frontal lobe, the part of your brain responsible for regulating and reasoning through everything else your nervous system throws at it. The stronger and healthier that frontal lobe is functioning, the better it can step in and turn off an unnecessary stress response before it spirals into constant vasoconstriction. This is exactly why relaxation exercises work as well as they do. When you slow down, breathe deliberately, and deactivate that fight or flight signal, you're not just calming your mind, you're physically activating the frontal lobe, giving it the strength to override that stress signal and tell your blood vessels to relax again. It's not some abstract mental trick, it's a direct physiological pathway. There's another way to fire up that same part of your brain, and it works even more powerfully than relaxation alone, not as a replacement for it, but as a partner to it. That method is movement. Exercise doesn't just distract you from stress. It engages your brain and your circulation at the exact same time, hitting this problem from multiple angles at once. And once you see what exercise is actually doing beneath the surface, you'll understand why so many people notice their cold hands improving the moment they start moving their body regularly. Here's something you've probably experienced without realizing why it happens. You head outside for a walk on a cold day, and your hands are freezing from the moment you step out the door. 10 minutes in, they're still cold. 15 minutes in, still nothing. But somewhere around the 20 to 30 minute mark, something shifts. Your hands suddenly feel warm, almost like you could take your gloves off and still be fine. That delay isn't random. It takes roughly 20 to 30 minutes for your capillaries, the finest blood vessels in your hands and feet, to fully open up and let blood flow through at full capacity. Exercise raises your heart rate, which means more blood is circulating overall, and eventually that extra circulation reaches all the way out to your fingertips and toes. But it's not only about circulation happening in the moment. Regular movement sends a signal to your brain and your vascular system that this level of blood flow needs to become the new normal, not just a temporary spike. Your body starts adapting to meet that demand consistently, rather than treating good circulation to your extremities as some rare event. This is where exercise starts doing something even more permanent than just warming you up for the afternoon. It begins physically reshaping your circulatory system to support this outcome long term. And that reshaping process has a name of its own, one that explains why consistency matters so much more than any single walk ever could. That process is called angiogenesis, which is just a technical way of saying your body is building brand new blood vessels. Your body is constantly monitoring its own systems, checking what's being demanded of it regularly, and adjusting its infrastructure to match. If you consistently push more blood out to your hands and feet through regular movement, your body eventually responds by growing additional capillaries out in the periphery, specifically to support that increased demand. Think about what that actually means. You're not just temporarily warming your hands during a walk. You're triggering your body to physically expand its own circulatory network so that better blood flow becomes your baseline, not just a fleeting exception. This is why people who exercise consistently over weeks and months often notice their cold hands and feet improving in a lasting way, not just during the workout itself, but throughout the entire day. Your vascular system is adaptable in a way most people never think about it, responds to repeated demand the same way muscles respond to repeated lifting, by growing to meet what's being asked of it. And once those new pathways are built, they don't just disappear the moment you stop moving for a day or two. They become part of your baseline circulatory capacity. But circulation and stress aren't the only pieces of this puzzle. There are a handful of everyday habits quietly making this problem significantly worse for a lot of people, and most of them go completely unnoticed. Let's talk about a few habits that can make cold hands and feet noticeably worse, starting with smoking. Whether it's cigarettes, cigars, or even e-cigarettes, smoking introduces carbon monoxide into your bloodstream, which reduces how much oxygen your blood can actually carry. Less oxygen reaching your extremities means worse symptoms, plain and simple. Nicotine itself also narrows your blood vessels directly, adding another layer of restriction on top of whatever vasoconstriction is already happening from stress. Interestingly, some studies have even found that vapes without nicotine can still reduce blood flow to the hands and feet, so it's not only about the nicotine content. Then there's caffeine, which also causes blood vessels to narrow, and it's hiding in more places than most people realize, not just coffee, but tea, energy drinks, and even chocolate. If you're already dealing with cold hands, it's worth paying attention to how much caffeine you're actually consuming across the day. And finally, diet matters more than people expect. A balanced diet ensures your body has what it needs to produce healthy blood cells and maintain proper blood flow. Skipping key nutrients can lead to deficiencies like low B12 or anemia, both of which are directly linked to cold hands and feet as a symptom. None of these factors work in isolation. They stack on top of the stress and circulation issues we've already covered, compounding the problem. But there's one more category worth addressing before we wrap this up, because sometimes cold hands are a signal of something that needs real medical attention. Now, most of the time, cold hands and feet come down to exactly what we've covered: stress, circulation, lifestyle habits, maybe a bit of ancestry mixed in. But there are cases where it points to something that needs a closer look. One example is Raynaud's phenomenon, where blood vessels in the hands can spasm in response to stress or cold, causing not just coldness but visible color changes, numbness, or a pins and needles sensation. It's more intense and more sudden than the everyday cold hands most people deal with. There are also underlying conditions that can make circulation problems significantly worse, including diabetes and peripheral artery disease, both of which affect how well blood moves through your body overall. Age and other individual factors can play a role too, and some research suggests certain groups experience more severe symptoms than others. None of this is meant to alarm you for the vast majority of people. Cold hands and feet are simply about stress and circulation, fully explained by everything we've already walked through. But if your symptoms are severe, sudden, involve significant color changes, numbness, or pain, or just don't improve no matter what you try, that's worth bringing to a doctor rather than guessing on your own. Self-diagnosing from a video is never the goal here, understanding the mechanism is. And once you understand the mechanism, you're in a much better position to know whether what you're dealing with is ordinary or something that deserves a proper medical opinion. So here's where all of this lands. Your cold hands were never random, and they were never some mysterious flaw in your body. They're the result of a specific chain stress tightening your blood vessels, your frontal lobe either stepping in or staying quiet, and possibly a trait passed down from ancestors who survived winters most of us can't even imagine. The story runs deeper than skin and blood, it runs through generations. But the part that actually matters for you today is simple. Relaxation calms that stress response. Movement rebuilds your circulation from the inside out. Together, they're the two most reliable tools you have for warming your hands back up, permanently, not just for 20 minutes on a walk. That's how this lineage spread. But if you want to go beyond basic percentage charts, go to the Origin DNA linked below. You get a full 3-volume PDF bundle that teaches you how to read your raw data, use matches to find relatives, and uncover the deep history, ancestry, and 23andMe leave out. Click the link in the description and unlock your full results right now.